Bates, take Mr. Pike into the hospital.
Can I please have my mom before I go?
Mr. Bates, please hold Miss Pike in the doctor.
Please, let me just love my mom.
Please hold Miss Pike in the doctor.
Oh, I love you. I love you too. And I love you too.
It is therefore ordered that you shall be put to death by execution in the mode prescribed by law, and that you shall be transferred to custody of the warden.
After 3 decades on death row, the state's only female inmate facing execution has a date with destiny. On September 30th, 2026, Christa Gale Pike, infamous as the Pentagram Killer, will walk her final steps toward the lethal injection chamber. At just 18, she orchestrated one of the most sadistic murders in American history. But how did a troubled teen become a monster? Welcome back to Shadows of Justice. If you're into true crime, dark psychology, and the stories behind the headlines, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon, because tonight we're pulling back the curtain on Christa Pike's haunting path from teenage rebellion to death row infamy. March 10th, 1976, Beckley, West Virginia. Christa enters the world 2 months early, her tiny lungs straining against the odds. Her mother, Carissa Hansen, a woman battling her own demons of depression and addiction, drank heavily during the pregnancy, leaving Christa with organic brain damage and a malformed brain structure. From her first breaths, seizures rack her fragile body, a silent alarm no one fully heeds. Carissa, more interested in late-night parties than parenting, leaves infant Christa crawling through filth, piles of dog waste littering the floors of their rundown home. An aunt later recalls the neglect with horror. Christa's mother, informed of her toddler's violent convulsions, chose to keep carousing instead of rushing to the hospital. Her father, Emil Glenn Pike, is a fleeting presence. Divorced from Carissa before Christa's 2nd birthday. What little stability exists comes from her paternal grandmother, a beacon of quiet affection in the storm. Christa clings to her, later confiding that this woman was the only one who ever loved her. But even that light dims early. The grandmother dies in 1988, when Christa is just 12, plunging her deeper into despair. As the years unfold, the abuse escalates into a relentless cycle. Christa's home is a revolving door of her mother's boyfriends, men who bring violence as their baggage. Beatings become routine, belts, fists, scalding water poured over her skin. One boyfriend punches her square in the nose, splitting it open. Charges are filed, but quietly dropped in a settlement that teaches Christa a bitter lesson. Justice is for the privileged, not the forgotten. Worse still are the violations that shatter her sense of safety. At age 9, a family acquaintance rapes her, a brutal theft of innocence that leaves scars no child should bear. The system fails her again. Reports to authorities lead to minimal intervention, sending her back into the lion's den. At 17, a stranger assaults her in another act of random cruelty, confirmed by hospital records but met with a cursory police shrug. These aren't isolated incidents, they're the soundtrack of her youth, compounded by Carissa's emotional barbs, constant belittling, suicide attempts in front of her children, and a household drowned in alcohol. Shuffled between relatives, foster homes, and juvenile facilities, Christa changes schools a dozen times before high school. Once a bright spark, teachers noting her quick wit, the instability erodes her potential. Truancy turns to rebellion. Fights erupt in hallways as rage boils over. Drugs enter the frame early. Marijuana to numb the nights, cocaine and hallucinogens to chase fleeting escapes. By her early teens, the untreated brain damage manifests in mood swings, dissociation, harbingers of the bipolar disorder and PTSD that will be diagnosed far too late. The breaking point comes at 12, in the shadow of her grandmother's grave. Overwhelmed by loss and a lifetime of unspoken screams, Christa attempts suicide, slashing her wrists in a desperate bid for peace. She's diagnosed with depression, handed a bottle of pills, and sent home to the same toxic brew. Another try follows years later, an overdose on Tylenol that barely registers on the radar of care. By 1994, at 18, Christa is a ghost of the girl she might have been, scarred, searching, surviving. She enrolls in Tennessee's Job Corps program, a government lifeline for at-risk youth promising skills, structure, a second chance. It's here, in the dorms of Knoxville, that her story darkens further. New bonds form, jealousies ignite, and the untreated wounds of childhood fester into something lethal. As the calendar flips to late 1994, Christa Pike, now 18, steps off a bus in Knoxville, Tennessee, carrying little more than a duffel bag of shattered dreams and unresolved rage. Enrolling in the Job Corps program, a federal initiative designed to equip at-risk youth with vocational skills and a path to stability, she's seeking escape from the West Virginia nightmares that defined her childhood. But in these dorms and classrooms, amid promises of redemption, shadows from her past converge with new temptations. Bonds form, obsessions ignite, and the untreated scars of abuse begin to unravel her fragile grip on reality. Job Corps is no ordinary school. Set on the outskirts of the University of Tennessee campus, it's a residential program where young adults live, learn trades like welding or nursing, and confront their demons under structured supervision. For Christa, it's a lifeline, free room and board, counseling sessions, and a chance to earn a GED. She dives in, training in computer technology, her quick mind shining through the haze of her bipolar disorder and PTSD, conditions still undiagnosed and untreated at this point. But the social undercurrents pull her in unexpected directions. In the women's dorms, Christa meets Shadola Peterson, a 17-year-old from a similarly troubled background. Shadola, with her interest in the occult and a penchant for rebellion, becomes Christa's confidant. They share late-night talks about witchcraft, drawing pentagrams in notebooks, and whispering spells from borrowed books. Harmless escapism at first, but a gateway to darker fascinations. Then comes Tadarrell Shipp. At 17, he's charismatic, street-smart, and enrolled in the men's program across the way. Tadarrell, who dabbles in Satanism and boasts of gang ties, captivates Christa instantly. Their romance ignites like a spark in dry tinder. She tattoos his name on her body, carves symbols into her skin as tokens of devotion. Tadarrell reciprocates, feeding her possessiveness with tales of eternal bonds sealed in ritual. Together with Shadola, they form a tight-knit trio experimenting with occult practices that blur the line between fantasy and fixation. Enter Colleen Slemmer in early January 1995. 19 years old, with a warm smile and aspirations to become a nurse, Colleen arrives from Florida, full of optimism and energy. She's outgoing, flirtatious, and quickly integrates into campus life, but her friendliness crosses paths with Tadarrell, innocent chats, perhaps a lingering glance that Christa interprets as a direct threat to her relationship. Jealousy festers like an open wound. Christa confronts Colleen in the hallways, hissing warnings to stay away from my man. Colleen, unfazed, dismisses it as petty drama, even confiding in friends about the odd threats. But for Christa, it's war. She spins narratives to Tadarrell and Shadola. Colleen is a snitch, a witch plotting against them, deserving of a sacrifice to protect their circle. The trio's occult games turn sinister. Candles flicker in secret meetings. Plans are hatched in whispers. By mid-January, the obsession peaks. On January 11th, Christa boasts to dorm mates about taking care of Colleen, her words laced with venom. The stage is set for a cold Knoxville night, where rivalry erupts into irreversible horror, a night that would claim Colleen's life and forever chain Christa to her past. In the grip of a bitter January cold, a routine evening at Knoxville's Job Corps Center spirals into unspeakable horror. Christa Pike, fueled by jealousy and unchecked demons, crosses a line from which there's no return. The day begins unremarkably. At the Job Corps dorms, tensions simmer beneath the surface. Christa, now deeply entangled with Tadarrell Shipp and Shadola Peterson, obsesses over perceived threats from Colleen Slemmer. Prosecutors later describe the motive as pure jealousy, Christa believes Colleen, with her outgoing nature, is flirting with Tadaril and trying to steal him away. Whispers of occult rituals amplify the paranoia. Christa views Colleen as an enemy to be sacrificed to safeguard her relationship. By evening, the plan coalesces. Around 8 p.m., Christa, Tadaril, 17, and Shadola, 18, approach Colleen in the women's dorm. They feign reconciliation, inviting her for a peace talk walk to smoke marijuana and clear the air. Colleen, 19 and trusting, agrees, perhaps weary of the ongoing feud or simply naive to the danger. The group slips out into the 34-degree night, crossing the street to the secluded woods near the University of Tennessee's abandoned steam plant on the agriculture campus. A tangle of overgrown paths and isolation, perfect for secrecy. Once deep in the woods, the facade crumbles. Christa turns on Colleen, accusing her of pursuing Tadaril. A shove escalates into a brutal assault. Shadola stands watch, ensuring no interruptions, while Tadaril assists in restraining the victim. What follows is an hour of relentless torture, far beyond a simple fight. Christa, armed with a box cutter and a mini meat cleaver, inflicts dozens of wounds, slashing Colleen's throat 6 times, carving into her back, and etching a pentagram symbol into her chest and forehead amid screams and pleas for mercy. Beatings with fists and kicks compound the agony as Colleen begs, "Why are you doing this?" The fatal blow comes when Christa hurls a large chunk of asphalt at Colleen's head, crushing her skull. In a macabre twist, Christa removes a fragment of the skull as a souvenir, wrapping it for later. By 9 p.m., it's over. Colleen's body lies mutilated in the underbrush, exposed to the elements. The trio returns to the dorms, Christa discarding bloodied clothes and attempting to clean up. Back on campus, she can't contain her exhilaration, bragging to a dorm mate about the killing and even displaying the skull piece to horrified peers. The next morning, January 13th, dawns with alarm. Colleen is reported missing. 2 University of Tennessee employees stumble upon her body around 8 a.m., alerting authorities to the gruesome scene. Whispers spread through Job Corps as police descend, piecing together the puzzle from witnesses who recall Christa's threats and boasts. This fateful night transformed jealousy into atrocity, claiming Colleen Slemmer's life and condemning Christa Pike to decades of scrutiny. As dawn breaks on January 13, 1995, the Knoxville woods reveal a scene of unimaginable brutality, the mutilated body of 19-year-old Colleen Slemmer. The investigation ignites immediately. Around 8 a.m., 2 University of Tennessee groundskeepers discover Colleen's body in the overgrown area near the abandoned steam plant, beaten, slashed, and marked with occult symbols. Knoxville police arrive swiftly, securing the scene and noting the extent of the wounds, over 300 injuries, including a pentagram carved into her chest. Back at Job Corps, panic spreads as Colleen is reported missing. Witnesses recall Christa's recent threats and boasts about handling her rival. By midday, detectives zero in on Christa Pike, Tadaril Shipp, and Shadola Peterson. Christa, still wearing bloodstained clothes from the night before, is brought in for questioning. Under pressure, she cracks, not with denial, but with a chilling confession. Over hours of taped interviews, she details the luring, the torture, and the killing, even demonstrating how she carved the pentagram. Shockingly, she produces a skull fragment from Colleen's head as evidence, kept as a trophy. Shadola corroborates the account, implicating the group in exchange for leniency. Tadaril, more reserved, is linked through forensic matches, blood on his shoes and clothing. Arrests follow that evening. All 3 are charged with first-degree murder and conspiracy. Christa, at 18, is tried as an adult. Tadaril, 17, faces similar charges but with juvenile considerations. Shadola, also 18, is positioned as an accessory. The community reels. Job Corps suspends operations temporarily. Counseling is offered, and media descends on Knoxville, dubbing it the Pentagram Murder. Trials commence in early 1996. Shadola pleads guilty to facilitation of murder first, receiving probation, and agreeing to testify, serving as a key witness against the others. Tadaril's case goes to juvenile court initially but transfers to adult. He accepts a plea for second-degree murder and conspiracy, sentenced to life with parole possibility after 25 years. Christa's trial begins March 22, 1996, in Knox County Criminal Court, a media spectacle drawing national attention. Prosecutors paint her as the ringleader, emphasizing the premeditation and especially heinous nature of the crime under Tennessee law. Evidence mounts. Her confession tape plays to a stunned courtroom. Autopsy reports detail Colleen's suffering, and the skull fragment is exhibited. Witnesses recount Christa's pre-murder threats and post-killing brags. The defense counters with mitigation: Christa's abusive childhood, undiagnosed mental illnesses like bipolar disorder and PTSD, brain damage from fetal alcohol exposure, and multiple suicide attempts. Experts testify to her impaired judgment, arguing for life over death. Family members, including her mother, take the stand to describe the neglect and violence that shaped her. But the jury, after deliberating just hours on March 29th, convicts her of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. In the penalty phase, arguments intensify. Prosecutors highlight the torture's sadism as aggravating factors. The defense pleads for mercy, citing her youth and trauma. On March 30th, 1996, the jury recommends death by electrocution, later amended to lethal injection under state changes. At 20, Christa becomes Tennessee's youngest death row inmate and the first woman sentenced there in nearly 200 years. In the sterile silence of Tennessee's death row, time stretches into eternity for Christa Pike. Convicted at 20, she's spent nearly 3 decades appealing her fate. Her story a labyrinth of legal battles, personal turmoil, and unhealed wounds. April 1996. Christa arrives at the Tennessee Prison for Women in Nashville, now the Deborah K. Johnson Rehabilitation Center, a maximum security fortress where death row inmates endure 23-hour lockdowns. At 20, she's the youngest and only woman condemned in the state since 1820. Her days blur into routine: solitary confinement, limited visits, and the weight of her actions. She turns to art and writing, occult poetry, sketches of pentagrams, while grappling with remorse in interviews, claiming the murder was a blackout fueled by untreated mental illness. But peace eludes her. In August 2001, Christa attempts an escape, strangling fellow inmate Patricia Jones with a shoelace during recreation time. Jones survives, but Christa is convicted of attempted murder in 2004, adding 25 years to her sentence, insurance against any commutation. This incident hardens perceptions. To prosecutors, proof of her danger. To advocates, a symptom of prison-induced despair. The appeals begin immediately. Over 25 years, Christa's legal team files more than a dozen challenges: ineffective counsel, jury bias, gender discrimination, and the unconstitutionality of executing someone so young at the time of the crime. Key arguments highlight her abusive childhood, bipolar disorder, PTSD, and brain damage, factors the original jury heard but deemed insufficient. In 2001, a federal judge grants a new sentencing hearing, citing poor defense, but higher courts reverse it in 2004. Denials pile up. The U.S. Supreme Court rejects her case in 2012 and again in 2020. Clemency pleas to governors fall flat, emphasizing the murder's heinous nature. Yet glimmers of change emerge. In 2022, a lawsuit ends her prolonged solitary confinement, citing mental health deterioration, leading to slightly improved conditions. Advocates, including anti-death penalty groups, rally: "No woman executed in Tennessee since 1838, and Pike's youth and trauma warrant mercy." By 2025, at 49, Christa is a changed woman, scarred by isolation but expressing regret in rare statements. The state, amid a push to resume executions after COVID pauses, requests her warrant. On September 30th, 2025, the Tennessee Supreme Court grants it, scheduling lethal injection for September 30th, 2026, the first for a woman in the state in over 2 centuries. Appeals continue, with potential stays from new evidence or clemency, but the path narrows. Tadaril Ship remains imprisoned for life. Shadola Peterson, released in 2003, lives quietly. Colleen Slemmer's family, still grieving, supports the sentence. Christa Pike's journey, from abused child to condemned inmate, mirrors society's failures in prevention, mental health, and the death penalty's morality. As her 2026 date looms, it challenges us. Does execution heal or perpetuate cycles of pain? Colleen's life demands remembrance. Christa's story, understanding. Thanks for watching Christa Pike's story, from her troubled childhood to death row. If you stayed until the end, please like and subscribe for more true crime deep dives. Let's keep exploring these stories together. Stay curious and kind. See you next time.